In my video on the red heifer, I had stated that Mishna Para 1:1 says that 3 years is the minimum age for the red heifer, and that 3 years meant 3 years. Now, some of my friends pointed out to me that this differs from the minimum age claimed by the Temple Institute. They claim that the minimum age is 2 years. So I am going to issue a correction and a clarification in this video. If you want the whole scoop, and there is some very interesting material here, stay tuned. Hi there, I'm Lee Brainerd. Welcome to Soothkeep and another edition of Prophecy in the Crucible. My mission is truth, truth at any cost, truth above every other consideration. Now, the truth that we're looking at today is whether the red heifer needs to be 3 years old or 2 years old. Let's start with the problematic passage in Mishna Para. In Mishnah Para 1:1 we read, "But the sages ruled the heifer may be even 2 years old, and the red cow even 3 or 4 years old." Now, I had followed one of my favorite Bible teachers in my understanding of this passage, and I'd also followed my own understanding of the Hebrew. And my train of thought went, okay, if the calves are 1 year old by standard count when they arrived in Israel, and the Mishna Para says they have to be 3 years old before that they can be examined to determine whether or not they're going to be legitimate red heifers to burn for their ashes, then if the 1 year is standard count, then the 3 years would be standard count, and that means we have 2 years of standard count time to wait. This is reasonable and logical. However, the Temple Institute states on their Facebook page in a post dated from September 19th that's entitled, "More About Our 5 Red Heifer Candidates." According to Mishna Para, the heifer can be slaughtered and rendered into ashes no earlier than its 3rd year, which according to one opinion begins when it is 2 years old and 1 day. According to another opinion, it must be 2 years and 1 month old. So now at first glance, it looks like I have simply misunderstood the Hebrew in the Mishna Para. 3 years really means in the 3rd year. In other words, that stretch of time from the 2nd birthday to the 3rd birthday. And this was the explanation of the meaning of 3 in Hebrew that was given to me by some of my friends who pointed out that I differed from the Temple Institute on this subject. However, as I dug deeper into this question to see where I went wrong on my Hebrew, because I didn't think I'd gone wrong on my Hebrew, but maybe I did go wrong on my Hebrew. So the deeper I dug, the more I realized that the real problem is not a problem with Hebrew grammar, but it's a problem with a convoluted rabbit hole of rabbinical interpretation. In short, I really did understand the Hebrew of the Mishna Para. The traditional halakhic interpretation of the passage is a minimum of 3 years by standard count. And this is according to the sages and Rabbi Meir. This is clearly taught in Mishna Para. But the Temple Institute is following Rabbi Eliezer against the standard halakhic interpretation. Rabbi Eliezer allows the red heifer to be 2 years old. So this is not a matter of the meaning of 3. This is a completely different issue. Since his view is mentioned in Mishna Para as a non-standard view, they feel free to say according to Mishna Para. What is interesting is that the Temple Institute on their website confesses that 3 means 3 in the Mishna Para. The accepted halakha, the correct decision in Jewish law, goes against the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, and they've marked this with an exclamation mark. For a heifer is actually not considered mature for use until it reaches the minimum age of 3 years, not 2, and they add another exclamation mark. And it is another rabbi, a Rabbi Eliezer's contemporary Rabbi Meir, whose decision is accepted in this regard. This is found in an article they wrote called "The Oral Tradition," shedding light on the secret of the Bible. Why has the Temple Institute gone against what they admit is the correct decision in Jewish law? Well, the real reason is a deep well and will probably never plummet. Perhaps it's simply the convenience that they are more likely to obtain an unblemished red heifer if they only wait 2 years instead of waiting 3 years, because the longer you wait, the more likely it is that you will discover blemishes. But they have given us their explanation, or their justification. They have followed a cunningly devised Jewish fable. Let me read what they say. Said Rabbi Akka in the name of Rabbi Yosei, when Moshe ascended on high, he heard the voice of the Holy One engaged in Torah study. The Creator was contemplating the subject of the red heifer, and his book was open to that section. He was quoting a legal decision in the name of one by the name of Rabbi Eliezer. Said he, "My son Rabbi Eliezer says that a heifer must be at least 2 years old." Moshe was amazed by what he heard, and he spoke before God. "Master of the universe, the entire universe belongs to you. All of the myriad worlds, the physical and spiritual realms, and you are busy with the study of heifers, quoting a decision in the name of a man who is but flesh and blood?" God told him, "All I occupy myself with is the purity of Israel." And the Holy One answered Moshe, "Know, Moshe, that in the future a righteous scholar will rise up in my world, and he will begin clarifying the issue of the red heifer. His name is Rabbi Eliezer." This too is found in the oral tradition, shedding light on the secrets of the Bible. So the bottom line is, they justified their rejection of the standard halakhic interpretation of Mishna Para with an oral tradition that claims that God decided in a conference with Moses to run with the view of Eliezer. So what do we conclude from this information? We conclude that the difference between my interpretation of 3 years in Mishna Para and the Temple Institute position that the red heifer only has to be 2 years old is not a difference in the interpretation of the phrase 3 years in Mishna Para. Even the Temple Institute folks admit that 3 years in Mishna Para means 3 years. The issue is that the Temple Institute has decided to reject the traditional halakhic interpretation of 3 years for the age of the red heifer and run with Eliezer's view that the red heifer only has to be 2 years old. Now, this raises 3 interesting points. 1, as far as counting the age of the red heifer goes, it doesn't matter whether or not I am right in following the traditional interpretation of Mishna Para. What matters is how the folks at the Temple Institute and their collaborating Orthodox brethren interpret the passage. 2, when the time to build the temple actually comes, which view is going to prevail? Will the 2 years of Rabbi Eliezer prevail, or will the 3 years of Rabbi Meir and the sages prevail? We're going to find out someday as we watch from the balcony in heaven. 3, Rabbi Eliezer's view could be correct after all. It might be the best application of the Bible. And we're going to find out this point too someday. Well, I hope you enjoyed this correction and clarification. I hope you now better understand the question of whether the red heifer needs to be 3 years old or whether it only has to be 2 years old. I know I certainly understand this question much better. Eyes wide open, brain engaged, heart on fire. We'll see you next time.